Kim, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, normally I don't start off with names, but we'll start off with names because I've been so stoked to have you come on and share all kinds of stuff, right?
I'm excited.
There were a few talking points that in my mind I knew I wanted to touch upon, but obviously the conversation is just going to go where it goes, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's the beauty of this, is that I still haven't, this is going to be the 11th episode, and I still haven't really dialed in a formality to it. And I don't know if that makes me unprofessional or just real creative.
I think it works, honestly. Like all the ones that I've listened to,
Yeah.
I love that it sort of takes on its own life, each individual episode.
Yes, cool.
I really love that.
And that's kind of where I think that's what makes it interesting versus very formulaic. And there's some formula to these things.
Yeah.
But I'd rather it sort of be mine, and I don't have a reason for it to be formulaic. Like, it's just me doing this. If there was someone who was, funding this. I mean, I do have Patreon sponsors, which is awesome. So I'll actually just give a shout out. Zach, Mike, and Mel, thank you guys so much for helping me. For those that are interested, patreon.com/SteveWalterPhoto. Got to pay the bills, Kim.
Yeah,
Gotta
exactly.
pay the bills. And we'll get into that in a second. But it's not like there's some entity that's like, it needs to be formatted this way. It needs to have more strong. Like,
Yeah.
I am the producer. I am the director. I am everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that too. So good. I'm glad that it's been well received in an organic way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So Everything is Art, season 1, Steve Walter Photo Podcast. Yay, formalities are done now. Kim, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You've been here for a while. I didn't
know.
even get to say, like, hey, Kim, how you doing? Yeah.
I'm good. Take a breath, right?
Yeah.
Kids are not here.
Oh, yeah.
Who am I?
Right. Oh, yeah, wait. I am. Oh, that's right. I am still myself. Sweet.
Exactly.
But you are a mother.
Yep.
You are a wife.
Yes.
You are many things. And we met,
Yeah.
probably 5-6 years ago?
I think I was still in college when we
Yeah.
met. I think it was like my junior year
Yeah.
I was going into.
It
doesn't seem that long ago.
No, it doesn't at all,
But
which is cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was funny. I was reflecting. I was organizing some files and things, and I was reflecting on old photos. And then I was like, I want to go back to old. So I found the first shoot that we ever did, which was very much an
Yeah.
impromptu shoot because we were shooting Jill, the maternity stuff. And then you were there, and I was like, hey, Kim, I got a feeling, could we do something? You're like, yeah, okay, let's do it. I was like, okay. And it's funny because I look at those photos, and there was a very specific setup for her shoot.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, oh, cool, this will just work for what we were doing. And then I look at those photos, I'm like, they weren't great because the lighting wasn't flattering for the angle where you were. And I didn't know enough to say, like, oh, let's change this. And I was like, no, this is kind of cool. But I look back on those, I was like, oh, no, those weren't great. And then I look at the very next time that we shot, I was like, oh, that's way better.
Yeah.
That's way better. So anyway, I share that because it's nice for me to reflect upon the history, right, and the experience that we've had together.
Oh, yeah.
As a photographer and a model. And that's definitely something that I wanted to talk to you about and to share with everyone else, your modeling experience amongst so many other things. How did you first get into modeling?
It really just, I had my experience with you. That was kind of like my first bit of modeling. And then when I graduated college, I had a friend who worked at an agency, and she was like, submit yourself. Like, I think you would be good for this. And
Yeah.
so I did. And it's just sort of gone on from there.
Yeah.
And I feel like I haven't done a ton of it, but
Yeah.
it always seems to find me.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
After I had Ainsley, I went back to my agency, and they were like, yeah, and they just sort of welcomed me with open arms. And I get things here and there, but it's nice. I actually just shot with a photographer in Jersey.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've always shot with male photographers,
Yeah.
and then to shoot with a female photographer, it's like a different world, but
Interesting.
it's not in a bad way. Like,
Yeah,
it's,
no,
there's
just different.
it's very different. And it was nice to sort of we had a lot of things in common, and it was just a really great experience. And I'm just glad to see where the modeling is taking me.
Yeah. And prior to that, did you grow up doing dance? When did you start dancing? Because I know you're a dancer.
Oh, yeah. I started when I was like 5.
Yeah. So
it's
like
been my life.
as young as you could possibly be to like remember like
Yeah.
things that are impactful, right? You were dancing. And
Yeah.
was there any specific dance that like you really were narrowed in on?
Yeah, I mean, definitely ballet. That's
yeah.
been my whole life. It's just where I felt the most comfortable, and yeah.
Which is ironic, right? Because you gotta like jam your toes like in there.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, it made sense to you to do that, right? Like you were like,
Yeah.
oh, ballet. Like, okay, yeah, I get this. Like, I get you got to do the thing. You got to do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, I get it.
I think it's because I'm sort of more reserved physically.
Okay.
Like my mindset isn't reserved, but like physically, I'm like even the way I'm sitting right now. I know I'm just like always like that prim and proper person.
Sure,
but
right.
that's just how I am. But like physically and emotionally, mentally, I'm like a maniac. But,
All over the place.
But yeah, I don't know. It's where I've always felt like home. And everything else I've never been extremely comfortable doing, but I like doing it and I'm not afraid to push myself. But
Yeah.
ballet is definitely,
That's cool.
it just feels like home.
And I bring that up because I think it's huge because, so I will say this, you're by far one of the best models that I've ever worked with. And I'm not just saying that because
Thank
we're
you.
on here, but I think I've shared that with you before. They're like, you're fantastic to work with. And I think one of the biggest things that differentiates, call it an experience model or a model that's going to help you produce good images, is one that's comfortable with their body.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have an awareness of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not you sit in front of a mirror and practice, do you do that? Do you sit in front of a mirror and like practice poses and do that stuff?
I do,
You
actually,
do. Okay,
yeah.
cool. You do.
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. I talked about that with Sarika. She was on the first episode.
Yeah.
And she would do that. She would review. She would record
yeah.
video and practice poses and then review it. And it's huge to think that like you need to do that because
Mm-hmm.
I do that, right, for myself to see like, it's so funny. I was doing this just the other day because I knew that, you know, like I was leaving my job and I was like, I know I'm gonna be taking pictures of people. Like, this is so vain. This is so vain. But then I was like, I want to make sure I got a good smile, right? Because I just shaved the beard. Let me practice my smile.
Yeah.
So like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I smile, look at the mirror. And I'm like, okay, cool. Hold that smile. I close my eyes. I turn away. I remove my smile. I perform my smile and I turn towards the mirror and I'm like, cool, nailed it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I'm practicing posing. And then for me
yeah.
to be able to do that, then convey that to you to say, hey, here's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason for that.
Exactly. And I think for me, I really just love to see, like when I practice in the mirror, I'm always thinking about an emotion or something that brings me back to see where my face goes.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to remember that you have these experiences you can go back on
Yes.
and bring it out through, your physicality. I think it's so
Yes.
important. I mean, because like when you're just doing, you're like, oh, this is so vain. But remembering that there is a purpose to it, like you have that inside of you, and everybody smiles, everybody cries, everybody. Like the shoot we did, my postpartum depression shoot, and like just us talking about it and going through that emotion again was what brought it out.
Yeah.
So.
And that was another thing that I shared. So for those that listened to that first episode, I'm pointing towards the camera, but for those that are just listening, this is Kim. This is Kim, the Kim that I had that experience with. And I say that because that was a big moment for me as a photographer and just for us as friends, right?
Yeah.
For us to be able to connect. But for me, knowing that, okay, hey, here's this moment. Like we knew we were doing a shoot. It's not like I was just like, hey, Kim, we're having this conversation. I'm like, hey, can I take out my camera and take pictures of this? No, we knew what we were doing that, but it became very real. Yeah. Right. And then it's like, oh wait, should I? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to take pictures. And then just going with that. So it's, you're right. It's tapping into the fact that like an actress would. And that brings me to the next thing that I was going to talk about you is that you have a large experience with theater. That was your major in college, right?
Yeah.
So it's referencing the fact that like, hey, if I need to be happy, let me just, I don't know, think about times when I'm happy. And then naturally I'm going to be like, oh my God, this is a lot of fun.
Exactly.
Or sad or serious, whatever it might be.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems, I guess, so basic to do, but I think hopefully this is helpful for those that are either aspiring to be models or those that are already models to kind of reflect and be like, oh yeah, duh, let me do that.
Yeah.
Let me practice and let me tap into emotion.
Oh yeah. And I think remembering that, an image isn't just an image. There's so many emotions it can bring up for people. Like I've had people look at the photos that we took and they're like, that I could just feel that moment and I went through that. And, it's great to have that connection and for someone either to find comfort in it or to feel something. I mean, that I think just with everything that's going on in our world today, you know, to have art, it's just to feel.
Yeah.
It's to feel all these things and to remind us that we're all going through something.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because when you think about it, it's called a luxury, right? That like going to the theater, going to the movies, going to see a concert, whatever it is, like no one needs that, right? But at the same time, like we kind of do. And us as artists, we have such a value for that I think, you know, there's a large part of the community that doesn't necessarily have a value for that in the same respect, right? Is that it's, sure, like, hey, will you buy this print? No, because, well, it's $1,000. It's like, yeah, I put blood, sweat, and tears. Like, I put my life, my soul into this painting or this print, whatever it is. It's like, I'm charging you a lot of money because, like, this is how, like, I live. It's like, well, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm just not. And it's like, oh, cool, I get it. Yeah. It's a luxury. But it's, if you look at a painting and then just the same person might go up to that and go, oh, my God, I don't know what I'm feeling, but this feels amazing. I don't care what it costs. Give it to me.
Exactly.
So there's that weird kind of split of the connection that you have, that it's more than just art.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like that. Yeah, that's good. So you were in school for theater, right? You did quite a few productions, I would imagine, in that time.
Yeah, I think I was I was just constantly going until I graduated. I mean, my junior and senior year especially, I like never stopped. I was doing something every semester.
Wow.
And then our senior year, the last semester, we did our showcase in New York, and so
that's awesome.
Crazy.
So it's cool to kind of have that, right? The dance, the acting, and you sing too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So dancing, acting, singing, modeling, like it's all connected.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because there's so much of that. I mean, subtract the singing part, right? But everything else, as far as those components, is what makes good modeling, I think.
Oh yeah, I think, you know, there's so many things you can bring into your profession, like so many experiences you have or skills you have.
Yeah.
And it really just supports, you know, what you're doing. I mean, when I'm modeling, you know, I can bring in some of the dance, or there is a pose, you know, or the acting with, you know, a specific face or emotion that I'm trying to omit. So
And I think you had told me one time when we were doing a shoot, because I wanted you to do like a smile or a laugh, and you're like, I just tell myself a stupid joke, or like I just reference like a joke, and I'm like, oh, that's how I laugh. Like that's because and I share that with so many people that I'm like, I know this girl Kim, and when she does this shit, like, so for some people listening, they might be like, yeah, he was talking about this person, and it seems so simple, but it's like. And now I realize what basically you're doing, just what you said you're doing. Like, I'm tapping into that emotion.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, tell yourself a dumb joke, or just make yourself laugh, and then you're gonna laugh. It's such a simple thing. And then when I share that with people, they naturally laugh. So that's usually when I take the pictures of them. So it's like that's my trick, right? That's my little move that I do. But it's really cool that there's a lot of work involved, right? It's not, like you said, it's a skill set. It's not just something that's like, oh my God, Kim, you're so pretty, you should model. It's like, okay, cool, thank you. But like, I've had experiences where I've worked with amateurs, and I'll take their photo, and I realize that they don't really know how to act in front of a camera. I don't want to say act, or they just don't know how to pose in front of a camera.
Oh yeah.
I'm happy to show them some stuff, but you know, I can only show them so much. But then there is obviously that kind of comfort and that skill, and you're just pulling in from those elements and those aspects, and practice. Definitely. To say, oh, cool. Oh, you're looking for something like this? Okay, cool. I can give you that pose. Yeah. And that kind of brings me to the other thing that I wanted to talk about with you, was that having all of that skill and that experience, right? And the modeling. So you've basically become your own, I mean, I don't even know, we said we didn't want to necessarily call it influencer, right? Because you don't necessarily think of yourself as that way, but you are. Like, you're a social media influencer, for lack of a better term, right? Let's just put it that way, for lack of a better term. And what I mean by that is that you produce content. You are the producer, you're the director, you're the marketer, you're the photographer, you're the model, you're the coordinator, you're like literally you're the PA, you're every single element that you could be. Yes. For the images that you create, and it's the Millennial Mom blog, right? So you have a website where you're sharing your experiences in your life, right? Real things that happen to you. And then through that, you make connections. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll start with like the blogging aspect of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I sort of go in and out of it because there's so many things I want to share, but I have to like reel it back in because I don't really share much about my husband just because he doesn't want to be involved. And
Of course.
I respect that. I totally get it. I mean, he's a very private person and I'm just like, whatever. I'll tell you what whatever happened. And then there's a level of like my daughter, at first I started, it was really her and and then I had sort of a weird experience with someone, not stalking, but kind of, and I decided that I was going to just take her out. Like, I don't really show a lot of her face or, but then I realized, like, I was missing this part of motherhood, like my part of motherhood, and then that's where I've really been able to come into my own with my blog and being an influencer is sharing my side of the story, and it's been great, and I feel like I've made so many connections, and I've gotten to communicate with so many women who are going through the same experience and like, yes. Like, nobody talks about that side of it. Everyone's like, you're supposed to give and give and give. But, and I feel like talking about that side has helped me not really like lose myself in it.
Yep.
And it's, it's been great to share what I'm going through and what I learn, and I get messages, from people all the time of like, that resonated so much with me. I mean, literally the other day I put up something about just how I'm the one that takes everything. Like, I'm basically the wall that everyone just throws all their crap at. And it's hard. It's really hard to be that person. But I've worked hard to know that that's happening and to prepare and take that time away for myself if I need it.
Right.
And acknowledge that, this is what it is right now, but it won't be that way forever.
Right. Being able to, like you said, that self-awareness and being able to process it in the healthiest way that you can. Mm-hmm. But no, I think that's fantastic that you could have complete strangers, right? Saying like, hey, oh my God, like, I love you. Like, I've connected to you. Like, this is amazing. Thank you. And you're like, oh, I'm just me sharing my story. But it's like, it feels good to do that. I mean, I can imagine it feels good to do that, right?
Yeah. I sort of look at it as I want to be what I didn't have. When I first had Ainsley, like, I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know anybody was experiencing what I was experiencing. And, just, I know it's the internet, but at the same time, it's like moms don't really, there's not a village anymore. There's not. People are working. People have their own lives. Like, and so women find their villages online. Yeah. And I don't see anything wrong with that because you don't always have time to go to your friend's house or to go to the mom next door's house to do everything. No. It's easy to pick up your phone and be like, wow. Like, that's exactly what I'm feeling today. Yeah. And to know that you're not alone, and it's just another level to reach someone who's going through the same thing you are. Yeah. It can be really, really powerful. And as much as like people will sit and say like, especially being a mother and being a father, like you have to be super aware of, like screen time, call it, right? With the kids. And it's like, oh no, these screens are, making us more disconnected. It's like, I'll kind of make the argument like, well, it's also connecting us too. So it depends upon how you use it. It depends upon what you're doing. If all you do is sit on your phone and look at nothing and maybe all you're doing is just absorbing, then that's bad. But like if you're using it as a way to create, to influence, to share, to inspire, like if you're using it both ways and also to consume, then that's not a bad thing, right? You're connecting with people that otherwise you wouldn't connect with. Definitely, yeah. And I feel like, social media is always going to be changing. Yep. It's always going to be growing and going in, in a million different directions. And right now there's the whole comparison game. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I get it, but at the same time, if you turn it in a different direction, it's like, I love to use this sort of analogy of like, okay, well, Krispy Kreme donuts are amazing, but I'm not going to blame Krispy Kreme donuts if I gain 5 pounds. That's my fault. It's my lack of self-control. Yeah. So it's like, if you don't like what somebody's doing, if it's making you jealous, if it's not, bringing you happiness, it's your fault because you're the one looking at it. Yeah. You can't blame somebody for what they're doing, what their truth is, or, what they're putting out there. It's like, so that's why like I struggle so much with being an influencer, is because I don't want anyone to be like, oh my God, like that's not real life.
Right. Kim, you're so fake.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
like, so let's talk about that. Like it's a job, right? Like to an extent,
yeah.
like we're kind of joking. It's like people will say, oh, that must be nice just to get free stuff. And it's like, it's not just free stuff. And I would imagine sometimes you don't necessarily get to keep items that are presented to you, right? Because if I could, just to kind of guess, right? Becoming an influencer, right? You gain some recognition, or not even an influencer. You have a blog, you have an Instagram, you gain recognition. Mm-hmm. People see value in that and they say, hey, Kim, here's who we are, company XYZ. We'd love to be able to send you some stuff. If it's something that you enjoy, please talk about it. Or, hey, we'll pay you X amount to talk about this thing, right? And then I would imagine they want you to just give an honest kind of opinion about it. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they're like, hey, here's $1,000. Tell everyone how dope this is. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, you're going to pay me. And I like what you're showing me. Like, if someone's like, I don't know, like, here's this crossbow. And you're like, no, I don't like crossbows. I don't want your money. Thanks. Is that kind of like on par? Because I'm not an influencer, so I'm not even really sure how that world kind of works. Is that somewhat on target?
That's pretty much. I mean, I feel like a lot of so there's like I mean, sometimes companies will be like, I will give you this product in exchange for you talking about it. Mm-hmm. But then there's some people who'll be like, I'll give you this product to try out, and I'll pay you this much to talk about it if you like it. Cool. The thing, I mean, I think what gets people angry is they just like push product, like people who just push products. Right. And I get it. Like, it is a job. It's a really hard job to have because you're creating pretty much a brand. You're branding yourself and your family and this whole aspect of that. And so for me, if I ever put something up, it's something I use. I think maybe once I like took a product that I don't really use, but I did like. Sure. But like everything that I post, and that's what's kind of hard because I've had people approach me and I'm like, I can't put that up there because that's not something I would buy or use. You're not aligned with it. Yeah. So, and I think that's the line, Sure. But it's a lot harder than people think it is. Yeah, I mean, it's not just getting free stuff. It's, creating content. But then a lot of bloggers, they make their money pitching to companies like, hey, I've used your product before. I love to use it. And, they have to put together a whole pitch of how they would use it, how many posts, how much they would charge, they have to prove how much they're worth. Like, it's not just... I'm just going to post this on my Instagram because I have like 50,000 followers. Right. I have to show you that those followers are engaged. Yep. You have to show the organic. That you're not just paying for people to follow you. That you don't just have a number. Exactly. Right. That's right. So then I mean, like you said, it's a brand. Excuse me. It's a business. The things you're talking about are no different than what I would do for a client with photos. Like, hey, I have this concept, I have this idea for photos that I think would help your company. So let me put together this pitch, right? Let me put together this keynote or whatever it is, or this book or this image. And that's similar. And I would imagine that, not all of it is created equal, right? So if you're call it a Kim Kardashian, people are just like, I'll give you $1 million if you just like wear this. Oh yeah. Cool. Of course. There are those extremes, but when you kind of bring it down on a level that's more for the every person, right? That to say, okay, I got to put in work. Like, this isn't just going to happen. Definitely. Right? And if you're posing for something, right? Like if you're taking a shot, like you're going to take multiple shots. It's not just like you're going to, even you as a model who's super comfortable with that, like you got to, that it's got to be dialed in. It's got to be right because it needs to match and correspond with your brand and all of that. And then like there's the other side of it where you get these huge brands who don't see the value in your work. And I know like a lot of the big time bloggers that I am friends with, I get their frustration, especially as a model, because I know that when I'm going to model something, I'm getting paid for my time and then I'm getting paid for the usage. Like I'm not just getting, and I feel like people who go into blogging, they just say yes to things, but they don't really understand the whole aspect of what's going on. Right. And so if a company says, I really like the campaign you did, I love the photos, can we use the photos? Yes, you can, but you're going to pay me for them because I may not be a professional photographer, but you like them enough to put them in your marketing. Like I should be getting paid for that. Yes. And so like, there's obviously blogger groups, and whenever I see somebody post, I'm like, I gotta tell, and it's great because there's so much community within the blogging community there, but there also is a lot of competition, and it's a rough business to be in. That's why I don't really like to call myself an influencer, because I try to like make it fluid and organic as much as I possibly can.
Right. So that way it's, I guess the way that I can connect and relate to that is like, I want to be a photographer, right? But I still want to have fun doing what I'm doing, right? I still want to enjoy doing what I'm doing, but I want to get paid.
Exactly.
And I want to kind of show my value. So I love that you brought that up, because so much of that today is people just grabbing content, just taking content and saying, hey, let me show you this. And it's like, you can't do that. That's stealing. It's copyright infringement. Like, and not that I want to sit and pretend to be some lawyer, right? But I know enough to know that like there's things that you can and cannot do. And to your point, as being a blogger or a content creator, call it. If you create an image and a brand says, oh, I like that, you're not just going to give that. There's value to that. It's like, and if they say like, hey, we love this image, we'd like to use it, and you go, okay, yeah, it's going to be, X amount of dollars for X amount of months where you're going to be using it, or, okay, here is the flat rate for you to use it unlimited, blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, oh, no, I want it just for free. Like, you should be happy that we're going to share. It's like, oh, no, then you go ahead and make your own image.
Go ahead. Go pay a model, because I know how much you're going to pay her. Like, I've literally had to write that out in an email. Like, I know how much you would make, because I am a model too. Like, it literally says it in my bio. So I don't know who you think you're trying to trick here or like con, and it really upsets me when I see huge companies doing it, because they're really playing to people's I'm sorry, I'm like blanking on the word, but their lack of knowledge on what everything else
just
that goes
their vulnerability
into it.
or their excitement to be like, oh my God, they're gonna post me.
Oh my God, Cheerios reposted my photo. Like,
no, they stole your image. Is what they did.
They did.
They took your image without asking. I mean, maybe, right, a lot of it is like, hey, tag me for credit. And look, if that's the conversation that you have beforehand, right? Like, we've always had that agreement, right? And even if there's someone that I'm working with, and if I say, hey, I'm going to charge you X amount of dollars, but part of that agreement is that you promote me, right? That you tag me in this. Or, okay, you don't want to tag me? Okay, well then there's going to be more value, because I'm not getting the promotion that I would hope to get. So therefore, there's a bigger cost to you. And some people are like, well, that's stupid. It's like, no, this is what I do for a living. Like, this is what I do. So there is this difficulty that kind of comes in with that. But I mean, I guess that is sort of the nature of this. Like you said, it's very competitive, and it's challenging, and it can be a lot of fun, but there's a lot of work involved.
A lot more than people think.
Social media influencer must be nice. It's like, man, it's a job. Like, it's a job. Like, if I can make money doing this, I'm going to do that. And
I think it's, so many people rag on like mommy bloggers, and I get it. Everybody has an opinion, and they want to put it out there. But I mean, you're looking at women who were working, now they had a kid, and they have to say, I could go to work and pay for my kid to go to childcare.
Right.
Or I could stay home and try and make money and watch my kid at the same time. It's just another way for women, or just parents in general, to stay home with their kids. And I just don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as, okay, well, they're helping other parents. They're creating an insight into this world for people who might, be there one day. And there is so much negative, I feel like, that's put out into social media and blogging and all the, everything that comes with it. But I don't think it's as negative as everyone makes it seem.
It shouldn't be. I mean, it shouldn't be. And I think it's, it's one of those things too, where people will look at it and they see your images, and they're like, oh, Kim has it made. And, or, like, oh, again, I keep using the phrase must be nice, but that's it. You're living your life through someone's social media feed, which, oh my God, don't do that.
Please don't.
Just like you said, like, hey, if you're mad, like, don't follow me. Like, don't comment. Like, don't. And I understand the counterpoint, right? That, well, you're putting yourself out there publicly. I have a right to my opinion. I guess you do, but like, don't expect me to be like, oh my God, you're so right. I'm going to stop doing this because you're upset with what I'm doing. No, stop. But it's I don't know exactly where I wanted to go with that. I mean, I think it's more like you experience this negativity, so it's on you to now say, okay, well, I want to disconnect from that, and I want to focus on that positivity, because that was my point, was that because you are sharing good content, like you're sharing valuable content. I don't want to call it content. You're sharing your story.
Yeah.
Right. And that is helping people. It helped me, help my wife. Like it's one of those things where it's more of an experience and less of just content. I guess that's where I would prefer to use that. It can be more powerful, right? It can be art.
Yeah.
It can be more powerful than just a way for you to get paid.
Definitely.
Is what I'm saying.
And I think for me, like, you know, being in theater, I'm a storyteller. So that's sort of how I look at it is like, I'm not an influencer. I'm a storyteller. I'm telling my story. And if that resonates with people, that's great. That's amazing. That's what I want. I want another woman who's just had a kid and feels totally alone in the world to realize that she's not alone and she's strong enough to get through something that seems like the hardest thing she'll ever experience.
Yeah. And that's huge. And I think more and more people need that. And that's, again, part of why I wanted to create this podcast, was that I feel like I've been having conversations with people. And again, the conversations that we have, even when we're just in between shooting or whatever it is, it's like, this is such a good conversation. Let me share this.
Exactly.
And I think you're doing the same thing, right? You're having that conversation online. The millennialmomblog.com.
Yep.
Yeah. Just for those that want to make sure that they can follow that. And your Instagram is _ the Millennial Mom blog _ Yes. Okay. So for, again, those that want to follow Kim and just kind of see some of the stories that we're talking about, right? Yeah. Call your target audience, you know, new moms or moms, but I think any human can read that and relate and connect to another human's story.
Yeah.
Also, you can see Kim's dope photos. But yeah, it's cool that you can take that skill that you have, right, as a mom, and say, okay, well, what can I do with this? And okay, if I can model and if I can produce and if I can make some income doing this, why wouldn't I? Yeah. Like, exactly. Why wouldn't I do that? Because then you get to stay at home with your daughter, which I'm sure some days you're kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, because I know I feel that. But at the same time, you're like, this is amazing that I get to do this, right?
Oh,
that you get to be there with her, and that you could be so involved. Yeah,
it's definitely a bittersweet feeling. Like I mean, I love her, but she's rough, and you know, she does go to school 2 days, and I like run some social media for some local businesses, and then whenever I have to go into the city and audition and stuff, but it's hard because I want to be that working parent, but I'm also like neurotic, where I'm like, I don't want somebody else raising my kid.
Yeah, that's difficult.
It's hard. It's really hard. And I get that from my mom. I mean, my mom literally watches my nieces, and like, I get it. And I'm just I have to be in control at this moment in time when she's so little and can't make her own decisions. And and it just works, you know, and it's been great to have to do it, or to be able to do it, and then to share that experience has been nice.
Yeah. So if you could talk to me and the audience, of course, about more about modeling. Like when you're talking about going into the city, right? Yeah. You have an agency, you have a manager, right? Someone that has communication with you about saying, hey, Kim, here's this opportunity. What do you think about this? Or even things like, hey, could you give us some update of, I mean, we were talking about, you know, the photography that you've been giving them. I know that, I'm happy to say that some of my photos are there in her book. No big deal.
A lot of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna brag a little bit. But no, I think it's important for people to kind of hear that, because if let's talk about the quote unquote Instagram model, right? That's a phrase that people talk about, and I think that kind of stems from what I was saying before. Like, someone's like, "Oh my God, you're so pretty, you should be a model." It's like, okay, cool, let me try it. And I think what's cool about being a quote unquote Instagram model is that anyone can do it.
Oh yeah,
anyone can do it. But as we just discussed, there's work involved. So what would you say for someone that kind of does want to try to break away from that quote unquote Instagram model, or that wants to be that Instagram model, but that wants to kind of work with an agency? Would there be something that you would suggest, or that you would have some insight just from your experiences? Yeah,
I think if you're looking to go into more like commercial modeling, which is what I do, I'm like a lifestyle model technically. That's like excluding runway. I mean, I know a lot of Instagram models, like it's not fake, but it's like
Right.
there's with modeling with an agency, you have to look like an everyday person.
Yeah.
Like I thought after I had a kid, I wasn't a size 4 anymore. That was not my strength, but in reality it is, because there are not moms who are size 4s.
Nope.
Like there's not, I would say, I don't want to say majority, but I would say,
Yeah.
after you have a kid, your body changes. And that's, I found out, is my strong suit now. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting so much more work because of that.
How funny.
Because I look
How
more,
funny.
and because like I have aged a little bit, which is, so I think if you're trying to get into an agency, definitely have more of a natural look.
Okay.
Something that's versatile. I don't want to say
Yeah.
natural, versatile.
Versatile, yeah.
I know with like a lot of, I don't know. I don't really know a lot about the whole Instagram modeling thing.
Sure,
like
sure.
I know from what I've seen, it's very like, I don't want to say plasticky looking,
Sure,
but it's,
plasticky.
like people have had enhancements or things like that,
Yeah.
or it's just in a bikini or whatever. It's
Yeah.
you have to be able to be versatile if
Right.
you want to break into an agency.
And what I'm talking about, right, is real modeling. And I'm saying that because, like you said, you're a lifestyle model. So it's like, hey, we need you to shoot a commercial for XYZ company, and you need to, drink this soda, or you need to eat this bagel with this type of cream cheese on it, and be like, oh my God, this is delicious.
Yeah.
It's like that type of work, right? I think I share that because, that's more of the work that I personally want to do, right? So when I think about that, when I get to work with you, I'm like, oh, cool, we get to do this type of stuff, right? And that's what we're going to be doing later with the shoot that I have in my mind is very commercially, almost like cartoony to an extent. And you guys, if you're interested in seeing the behind the scenes and the images, that's the Patreon. That's one of the rewards that I have available. So I'm definitely going to share the photo on the Instagram. Be like, hey, here's the picture of Kim. But if you guys want to see that process and what that looks like, so that's more of what I'm talking about, right? Not like this high fashion or even this influencer thing, right?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it's more sexy on Instagram. Like you don't have to be sexy all the time. Like I am not that way all the time. Like it's about being versatile. It's about, you can be sexy one moment, then you can be funny and goofy, and you just look like an everyday person.
Yeah.
It's not so much like you just rolled out of bed, but really you have like some makeup on and
it's the make it look like you just rolled out of bed, but perfect out of bed. Like I rolled out of bed perfectly.
And I know a lot of people, everyone's going to judge something that somebody does. And there's definitely work that goes into Instagram modeling, I'm sure. Yeah. Those poses are not easy. I cannot look behind and like make my butt look a certain way. And it's the same thing with being in an agency and, and there's so many different types. I think it's figuring out what type of model you want to be. Yeah. Because there are so many different types. There's like fit modeling where, you have to be a certain size. Yeah. And you have to stay that size. Yeah. And then there's like high fashion and then, and there are some people who can do it all and those people are amazing. And they're like superhuman. I've met a few of them and I'm like, what, how are you? Where did you come from? Like God just sort of like rained down and said, okay, here you go.
Here's the perfect model.
Yeah. But I think being able to be more of like lifestyle and commercial, having your own look is definitely an asset. Like it's not something you should shy away from at all.
No, right. Yeah. You want to be original. Yeah. Right? You should want to embrace who you are. Definitely. But then again, like we said, like the rolling out of bed perfect version of who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you're on set doing a shoot, what is that? Talk about it. Talk to me about it as a job, right? Are those typically long days, or is it the experience that you have where you're going in and it's sort of like, hey, I'm gonna show up. You guys need me to do a couple things, cool, and then I'm out, or are you doing long days on that stuff?
I think it really depends on the job. Like I did and it's. Some of them are more relaxed and some of them are very, I don't want to say uptight, but this is what you're here for and that's it. So
right.
like
we're not here to have fun, like let's get this done.
Exactly. Yeah. And people are very stressed.
Yeah.
So I did like a shoot for a Girl Scouts catalog. Yeah. And it was very much like you came in, you got dressed, you went, you did what you had to do, and then you went home, and that was it.
That was
like
it.
there was nothing. There
You're
was
not
nothing
making
else.
friends. You're not hanging out.
And then like a shoot I did before that for Verizon, it was just a hangout, and they used
Cool.
me in like 3 other different things that I wasn't even there for. And then I got
Cool.
paid a little bit more, which was nice. But
Yeah.
you know, it was fun. It was more interactive, and
Yeah.
so I think it really does depend on the shoot. But I think remaining as like professional as you can is it will get you more jobs.
Always,
like,
right?
And people know when you're sucking up. They're not
Yeah,
stupid. Like,
of course.
you know, there's so many people who are like, yeah, like I just did the, you know, they have their phones out and they have their portfolio right on their phone, and like that's great. Like, hey, you know what? You got to do what you got to do. Like, it's a business. But I think it's, instead of like doing that, you know, having a conversation with somebody and they're like, oh man, you would be great for something I'm about to do, and you're really cool. Let's work together again. And I think that's sort of what gets you more jobs, and then, you know, and networking in a relatable way. Like, everybody looks at networking like it is sometimes it's very formal, but it's creating a relationship with somebody else that, you know, can lead to something else, but also maybe it's a relationship with somebody else.
Maybe it's just, hey man, I'd love to grab a beer with you and just shoot the shit.
Yeah.
And it actually is, I would love to grab a beer with you and just shoot the shit.
Yeah.
And if the fact that you're able to maybe hire me or suggest that you could hire me, like that's a bonus, right? That's dope. Or just the reverse, right? If someone comes up to you and is like, hey Kim, I'd love to hang out with you, and it's sort of like, okay, do you actually want to hang out with me, or are you just trying to like figure out what I do, and are you trying to like piggyback off of what? So it's, you know, you want to obviously have that sort of positive intent. I love the idea of someone walking around with their phone just like pretending like they're scrolling through, and it's just
so
like,
many times.
and it's like, hey Steve, how's it going? Oh hey, no, I'm just looking at these images. Oh, what are they? Oh, it's just my portfolio. No big deal. Do you want to look at some of this stuff? And it's
crazy.
Don't be fake about it, right? Like it's that, like we were talking about, it's a super competitive space, right? To be in the creative industry, even though it's funny, going back to what we were saying before, right? That it's this sort of luxury, right? And there's this perceived value, but when you're actually in that space, it's sort of like me.
Yeah.
And I get it, right? Like, because you want the modeling job over someone else. I want the photo gig over someone else.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that I'm not going to sit and completely compromise who I am to say, oh, I want that job. Definitely. Or I'm not going to sit and kiss someone's ass just to get that job, just to now be the kiss ass and now be known as, oh, this is the kiss ass that gets the work. It's like, no, man, I'd rather be cool and respectful. And it's like, hey, if you like me, you're going to hire me. And I think that's the big difference. And I talked about that before, is that it's being you. Someone would rather hire Kim than the affordable model, or than the model who does exactly what we say. Like, oh, I like Kim. She's cool. Yeah. Oh, whatever her day rate is, bring her in. She's awesome. She's great to work with.
Yeah.
That's what it should be. And not like, hey, who's the most affordable model we can get? Like, oh, Kim. Yeah, cool. Whatever. And
I think that's going back to like being an influencer, like, you know, that sort of, it plays into that world as well, of like, okay, here's an influencer who maybe doesn't have as many followers, but her followers are engaged. She's on what she wants to say. You know, she's not veering off into a million different directions. And that's where I sort of like, I try to stay on what I'm trying, you know, what I'm doing. Yeah, on brand, because why would a company want to hire me if I'm doing a million different things? Like, I know that that's sort of parenthood sometimes, but I would rather have somebody who is honed in on their one thing that they're doing, because I know that they're going to bring so much more to the table within that subject world. And
that's interesting. Oh, that's really interesting, right? Because as a photographer, and I think many artists, there's a struggle, specifically with me as a photographer. Like, I started out in photography, I was photographing everything. And then you realize, nope, don't want to do that, don't want to do that, don't do it. Okay, I want to do, now I kind of want to be here, and then let me go over here, and let me go over, and versus saying, I want to just do one thing. Because in my mind as an artist, like, it's difficult for me to say like, cool, I'm going to do one thing and one thing only. It's like, no, I kind of like doing this too. So what I'm trying to find is, how can I photograph the things that I enjoy and keep them related and cohesive, right? In a portfolio. And in my mind, I'm in the middle of sort of a refresh of things that I want to do, because I recognize that the images that I've been presenting don't necessarily completely align with the brand. It's more of just like, hey, I like taking pictures. Here's some of my pictures. To your point, right? I'm an influencer. If someone's approaching me, they need to see that, like, oh, you're not all over the place, right? That it's like, oh, one night she's hanging out with her family, like movie night, cool. And then the next night she's like partying with her girlfriends. Like, wait, what? Like, is that? And maybe it's like, if it's like a cool kind of casual girls' night and the kids are playing in the background,
Exactly.
that's on brand,
Yeah.
right?
Or if it's like I'm having a girls' night away from my kid, and like
Sure.
that, you know, it's staying on.
And if you can see that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Versus you just like slamming beers with your friends at the bar. It's like,
Yeah.
who's this Kim?
Yeah, and I mean that's also a good thing because like there's so many things I don't share.
Yeah.
That I don't have to.
No.
Which is great because I don't want to. Like I don't want to share. Like
That's perfect.
You know, I mean, and I know like a lot of the top bloggers, people ask them questions of like, why don't you ever show your husband?
Right.
It's like, well,
don't
this
have
isn't
to.
a reality show, people.
Right.
Like you have to show.
No.
I don't have to show you every aspect of my life. Like I choose to share these things.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to know everything, and I think that's a hard thing too. Is everybody
Yeah.
wants everything to be a reality show?
Yeah, we are very much like I'm thinking about YouTubers, right? YouTubers, there's some YouTubers that I follow, and I know them for the things that they do, right? So then when you look at this person, you build this connection. I've even commented, we exchange this pleasantries and all this stuff, and it's like
Yeah.
cool. And then it's like, oh, you're married? It's like, oh, I didn't know you're
Yeah.
married. Oh, you have a kid too? Oh, okay, cool. Like I didn't, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, dude, I'm like a human. I'm just not openly telling you that because I don't want to. Like,
Even with celebrities,
you
I
don't
feel
need to.
terrible when like
Yeah.
celebrities have to explain things. I'm like, whoa,
No. Yeah.
they don't owe you something because they're in a movie.
Nope.
Like I always think about that. I'm like, if I ever became famous, I don't know. I would
Yeah.
like. I wouldn't blame somebody for having a meltdown because that's a really hard world to be in.
Yeah, you think about the Britney Spears, right? Circa 2000, whatever that was,
Yeah.
where she lost her shit. I get it.
Or people that have to make a public note about their divorce.
Right, yeah. Oh,
Are you kidding me?
that sucks. That
That's
sucks.
so weird.
Yeah, to sit and say, like, all of you people that I don't know, but because I make a lot of money doing something that I love,
Yeah.
I have to explain to you what happened in my life, my personal. No,
Yeah, it's
that sucks.
crazy.
So yeah, I definitely like don't want to do all like yeah. There's things that like my wife is not a part. Like I share content, and I usually don't share. Like I'll share some personal things. We're having a
Yeah.
baby coming, cool. But like Sarah is in no way like a part of what I do, and that's okay. Like
Yeah.
that's fine. Like you were saying, your husband's not a part of the things that you do, and even you're teetering with where your daughter is. I've actually even thought about, and I had this conversation with Sarah. I was like, hey, you know, I was thinking about, and I literally said it like this. I was thinking about selling out our daughter. What do you think about that? And she was like, she's like, well, I don't know. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, there's this photographer, right? There's this guy that I've seen, successful commercial photographer, and what he's been doing, and it's so obvious to me at least, is he's been doing it well, so that's why I can't fault him. Is he recently did a shoot right before the movie Beauty and the Beast came out. You might have seen the photos. It was it went around all over the place. This was whatever it was 2-3 years ago. He did a photo shoot with his daughter where
Yes.
he was Beast and his daughter was Belle.
Yeah.
So in my mind, what I saw was that's brilliant marketing. That's immediately all I saw. I was like, damn, that's brilliant marketing. I was like,
Yeah.
I need my daughter to be older. Because he puts her in this dress and he does this photo shoot and then it goes everywhere. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh my God, this dad is so amazing. I was like, no, he's a brilliant marketer, people.
He is,
He's a
yeah.
photographer. He's a brilliant marketer. So then in my mind, I'm sharing that with Sarah and she was like, oh yeah, if you could do that, cool, do that. But then there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to have to do that, right? I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
have to do that. But then I'm also kind of like, well, would it be so bad if I, as a photographer, included my daughter in this space, in this world, for the sake of me marketing myself? Because then I look at what this guy's doing and I see it and I'm like, damn, that works. I don't know. I'm very much torn by it. So don't be
Oh, yeah.
surprised, people, if you see a picture of me and my daughter sometime soon, and hopefully that thing goes viral. But no,
Yeah.
it's the idea that I can create content, obviously spend time with my daughter, create content, and create something meaningful for us. Because I'm sure,
Yeah.
that's the story that this guy is telling, is that like I wanted this moment with my daughter and I wanted this thing, and it's like, yeah, cool.
But-
all that's true, but we know what you're doing. And
Yeah.
and I think about that, right, as an influencer, right? Trying to create content. It's just like these are real moments, but at the same time, like, yeah, there's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I'm doing this. Like,
Oh, yeah.
there's this moment of you and your daughter and you're having this thing. It's just like, yeah, I set it up and I had to shoot and we had to take a bunch of takes and there was a break in between. There was a tantrum here and we had to go revisit it later. The light was a little bit different, so I had to wait till tomorrow. Like, yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
But that's a part of where we are. And going back to that, my whole point of that was like, there's no explanation that you need to give to anyone to say like, here's what I did, here's why I did it. It's like, I can just do the things that I do. If it's to make money or if it's just to make cool art, let it be.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think it's a weird space that we're in now with everyone being a brand, right?
Yeah.
Or so many people being a brand, and then without anyone having any kind of branding experience or being able to recognize what is a brand, to then say, well, I am my own brand. Okay, well, what is your brand?
What does that mean?
Like what are your brand guidelines? Because I'll tell you what, Pepsi has strict brand guidelines. You can't use the logo in this color, this close to this typeface on this edge of the thing, like all of that stuff. So it's
wild.
When you don't see that from people day to day, you'll have this confusion, and I don't know, it's so weird. It is so weird. But also very interesting.
Yeah. I think it's, I feel like it's going to have this rise, right? We're at this rise now where it's right, and then all of a sudden it's going to hit the next generation. They're going to be like, I don't want my face all over the internet. I don't like. That's what I think of. Like, I don't judge anybody who has their kid or vlog. I don't judge it. Like, that's their own personal decision.
Yeah.
For me, I look at it as what I want to like grow up and see. My mom was on Instagram and like my butt was on there, like there's just a level, like my daughter is with me in some photos, but you don't see her face. Like, or you see like a part of her, you don't ever see her full face. I mean, granted, she looks literally exactly like me, so it's just
mini
a mini
you.
version of
It's
me,
mini you.
But it's like,
it's funny. I'm sorry I cut you off. She is a direct split, I would say, of you and her. She's a direct split of the two of you.
For sure.
And when I look at Scarlett, I see a direct split of the two of us. So it's just funny. Like, she's definitely a small version of you. But go on. Yeah.
Definitely. And so, like, that's where I sort of have played the line with. It's like, do I want to do this? Do I not? Like, there's so many cute pictures I have of her. Great pictures. And I'm like, I want to post that so bad.
Right.
But in 12 years, do I want her to be like, oh yeah, my mom was an Instagrammer and she put my face all over the internet?
You're right, because that image goes out there and it's out there forever, realistically. Like, it is. Like, it's somewhere on someone's database. Those people don't think about it, right? Instagram is going to keep that database forever, always. So you publish that image, it's out there.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, but
a little bit. Even it's like, oh no, I deleted it. It's like, you deleted it.
Yeah,
they didn't. They could easily just repost it somewhere. But you assume they wouldn't do those kind of things. But it is an interesting topic to think about. Like, when you're sharing, and some people share a lot.
A lot, yeah.
A lot. And I understand the reason to do it, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is, sometimes there are some of these like sort of like harmless aspects, like, hey, you're just sharing family moments, right?
Oh yeah.
Cool, do that. But then sometimes there are some things that are like really personal, or just like really, and it's just like, whoa, this is the internet, man. What are you doing? Have that conversation with me on the phone or in person with coffee in front of us.
Yeah. I don't think our generation has, well, I sort of include you in, because you're only...
Technically, well, I'm only, I'm teetering on that,
You're
Kim.
Jill's age.
I'm going to be...
You're only 30.
Yeah, I'm 37. I'm going to be 37 in
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're still a millennial, because I think it's...
Technically, 81. 81. I didn't realize this. I am a depending upon the scale that you look at, right?
Yeah.
The graph or the chart. 1981.
Okay.
Started
So,
the millennial. So I was born in May of 81. So I'm a millennial.
So
we are. Yeah, we're in this.
So I don't think our generation has fully grasped the consequences of the internet.
No, we can't.
I don't think we have. Yeah,
No.
we can't. We literally can't. I mean, now we see everything that's happening with Facebook, and we're like, oh.
Yeah, scary, sketchy. Like, wait,
wow,
what's happening?
That's not cool. And I think, once the kids get to like 10, 12, 14, and they start seeing like, oh my God, I was on the internet when I was a baby. There are pictures of me on Pinterest. Like, that's what scares me the most, is like, oh my God, there's going to be pictures of her on Pinterest that links back to my blog. Like, and she's going to see that when she's 12. She could be scrolling through Pinterest and see her face.
Yeah.
How freaky is that?
Yeah, that's
like,
going to be kind of
weird.
weird.
To me, that would be a little freaky. So I think that's just why I sort of teeter with it so much. And it's why as like an influencer, I back off a lot because
so you're
like,
not
yes,
putting out that much.
Yeah, and it's great to make money, but at the same time, at what cost?
Right. I guess that's it, right? When I think back of what I was saying to Sarah, like, hey, is it cool if I sell out my daughter? It's like, well, what's the cost? Is it so you can hopefully make some money this year with this concept? Like, okay, cool, but then, how often are you going to do that? And then there are, not that I want to dive so deep into it. We go back to those YouTubers, right? There was a story that I saw a long time ago where there's basically this family. And there's several of them, but basically they made their family a brand. They have a channel, and they would share all kinds of shit. And these parents, I want to call them shitty parents. They were shitty parents.
Posted about this.
Yeah, these shitty parents that would pull pranks on their kids, basically just like mentally scarring little kids, right? So how far, right? How far do you go? And you're doing that for what, 100,000 likes? In the YouTube world, 100,000 likes really isn't shit.
Yeah.
So it's, right, how far do you go with that where you're selling out your kids? And then now this is out there forever where these kids are 20 years old and you see them as a small child traumatically being... Yeah, no, you know what? Now I'm thinking about
it's like a dark circle,
right? Yeah, it's like that's messed up, man.
Yeah, it's
and I would like to think, right? In my mind, I was like, I would like to think like, oh no, I would never do anything like that, and I genuinely feel that way. But I'm sure in this dude's or this woman's mind, they're just like, oh no, it's fine.
Yeah.
I hope that they're that stupid and that ignorant, because otherwise, if they were aware that they were doing that, like, ugh. Anyway, I'm not trying to end this. I'm not trying to end this podcast on such a negative note, but I think it's a good point, right? Where when I think about us as a brand, us as content creators, us as just individuals and people, right? We're artists, so we want to create. It's in our blood to create. So I want to do that. I constantly that's what makes me happy, right? So we're going to shoot in a minute, and it's like, oh my God, I'm so stoked for that. Like I've been thinking about it today. I'm like, cool. I want to do this. I want to put the light here. Cool. But then it's like, well, how far do you go for that to make a living out of it, or to keep it a hobby, whatever it might be?
Yeah.
And as a model, like I didn't really get into this, but like you were saying, like you don't always have to be sexy. You don't always have to be sexy. Those photos that you're posting of yourself in this sort of, not you, I'm not saying you, I'm saying the collective general you, not Kim, but the pictures that people are posting of these sexy photos, it's like, that's out there forever, man. Like, and maybe you might be like, well, I'm going to be 60 one day. I'm going to look at that and I'm going to go, damn, I look good. And it's like, no, you might look at that and go, what the fuck was I doing? Why did I do that?
I'm also like the crazy person that thinks about like that random guy in his bedroom. Like,
well, yeah, that too.
That's me. Like
100%.
Yeah. Especially being married now as well.
Yeah.
It's like, who do I really want to see that? Like,
No.
I want my husband to see it, and not to be like a prude, but like,
of course, no.
I mean,
to definitely be like, yeah. There's a recourse, right? There's I can't think of the other word. I'm going to use recourse again.
Yeah.
So anyway, Kim, thank you so much for coming on and sharing and hopefully creating some enlightened discussion for those people listening. I don't know. I'm always just happy to be around you, and I appreciate you taking time coming here and doing this.
It was fun. Thank you for having me.
let's go take some pictures.
All right.
Yeah, dope. Cool.